to the next level because because what hurts about this trade is that not only did you miss out on James Harden, he's going to a direct rival in the Brooklyn Nets here. Hello and welcome to the Monday, January 18th edition of the TV on Basketball podcast with your host, TV. Hope your day is going good as always, and thank you for clicking on to watch or listen to today's episode. Before we start, I have to plug my other platforms. Remember to follow at TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for updates on the podcast and for other great content. If you're on YouTube, like, share, and subscribe. I usually do 3 uploads a week, and I'm going to be trying something new this week. Every day that I'm not posting a video, I'm going to do like a short in the sense where I'm going to be, just posting parts of my podcast to YouTube. So if you guys want to just watch a specific topic, you could just go check those out. So be on the lookout for that. And for all my podcast listeners, remember to subscribe and leave a review if you're on Apple. As for Spotify, Anchor, or Podbean listeners, continue to show your support in whatever way you can. Like I said, for the Apple people, if you're not in Canada and you leave a review, I probably won't see it. So if you did leave a review, just hit me up in the DMs, anywhere, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and I'll definitely give you a shout out. But yeah, I have a great show for you today. I had my immediate reaction to the Harden trade up on my TikTok and my Instagram, so check that out. But actually, if you want to, go check that out. But I'm going to be going into a full analysis of that here today. Going to be doing my power rankings, of course. My, my game of the night, which I am back at 500 by the way, so that's pretty good. And yeah, there's like a lot of great topics to discuss today. Action-filled show. I cannot wait to just see it. I can't wait for you guys to watch it. Mostly because also today there's MLK Day, so there's gonna be a lot of basketball for you guys to watch if you're listening to this or watching on a Monday. So yeah, great day for NBA basketball. But without further ado, let's get right into this. And of course, we're gonna be starting with the Harden trade. And in terms of this trade, I'm gonna be going into depth on the 4 teams involved. Some teams I'm gonna be talking more about. Some teams I'm gonna be talking about less about. But yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. The Harden trade really did shock the world. I believe it was either Wednesday or Thursday. And ever since then, the funny thing is, the Rockets, Pacers, and Cavs have not had a chance to play with the people they acquired from the trade, or at least the marquee players. But Brooklyn has, and James Harden has already been on the court for them, and we're definitely going to go into that as well. But yeah, let's start with Brooklyn here. Brooklyn, obviously, before the season started, was a title contender. Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and the rest of them guys, Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, Allen. It looked like a deep and really good team because they had 2 bona fide superstars, and they had the pieces around them to do well. It wasn't like, Karis LeVert wasn't a stud, Dinwiddie wasn't a stud. These guys were all like productive players in the playoffs, starting on a playoff caliber team. Mix that in with the 2 superstars, it looked like they had a good formula. And it really looked good to start the season, 2 dominating wins over the Golden State Warriors, and I believe it was the Celtics. I don't know, it was another East team. But they looked really good. That's the point here. And it kind of started going downhill. Obviously, KD getting hit with the contract tracing. I think he was out for 7 or 10 days, so that really halted their chances. Spencer Dinwiddie partially torn ACL, so he's probably out for the rest of the year. And to make matters worse, Kyrie Irving just went missing in action. He just did. He didn't talk to anyone. He just went missing and apparently was gone for personal reasons. So a lot of, messy stuff there with the Nets to start up the season, and what looked like to be, cruising their way to the number 1 seed in the East quickly turned to, oh wait, are we gonna have just like our full roster at any point? So they probably looked at this. They were part of the trade rumors beforehand. They were. Before the season, they were like, okay, if you're gonna get James Harden, they're probably going to trade everyone besides KD and Kyrie, or anyone is available, and probably all their picks, sort of similar to the Anthony Davis type deal that the Pelicans did with the Lakers, except with less talented pieces. I mean, there's a difference of getting, Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, in comparison to, Brandon Ingram, who's been an all-star, and, people like Lonzo Ball and stuff like that, and, who are, proven starters. With the Nets, looking at their roster, with the Dinwiddie injury, I think that was the biggest reason why they were able to pull off this trade. Their depth has started to weaken, and they didn't have that, oomph that they had, at the beginning of the season, especially with missing Dinwiddie. So they probably looked back at this Harden trade and be like, maybe we can get this done. And they did what they did last decade and just give up the whole farm of draft picks for the next 7 years. I'm not gonna say the whole draft, because there's 4 pick swaps, 3 first round picks they gave up, and I believe the other first round pick came from Cleveland, I believe. But besides that, they gave up a lot. They gave up a hell of a lot to pick up James Harden, and I don't know if I don't think I discussed this last week on the podcast, because obviously we had a Girl and a Guy Talk Sports on Friday, and my last episode by myself was Monday, so I don't think I talked about how James Harden basically pouted his way out. Obviously he had a trade request, but he announced his intentions in a press conference saying, "Trade me now. It's gone on for far too long. Trade me now." And it was a pretty ugly exit. And literally 16 hours after that press conference, he gets traded to the Brooklyn Nets. So they got their guy. They got their third star. But obviously they lost out on Jared Allen, who was their defensive anchor. I mean, DeAndre Jordan has not been good this year, so Jared Allen came in there and actually looked pretty good. Obviously they gave up Karis LeVert, which is the most talented player there's not KD or Kyrie on that team. And of course the boatload of draft picks. And a lot of people want to compare this to the 2014 trade, obviously, that they did with Boston. But I think this is better, obviously, because they got a superstar in their prime. It's not trading for KG, Paul Pierce, and Jason Terry, who are way past their prime in 2014, just so they can try to give something to Brooklyn. No. This is them going after a superstar who is in his prime, who has been in MVP considerations for the last 5 years. If you want to even go further back, 5 to 8 years. And you got him. And with the way, the expanded the rosters are now, because of this trade, the Nets have 5 roster spaces to mess with. They could still make some trades. They could obviously still do some signings. But you could already see, the goods and the bads of this team. I mean, like I said, this is the only team who traded for their marquee, that their marquee player actually played for them in terms of any of these teams in their trade. I mean, the Rockets still haven't seen Victor Oladipo on the court. The Pacers, we're going to get into that. Hopefully Karis LeVert's okay. And obviously the Cavs have not used Jared Allen yet, mostly due to postponed games and also just passing his medical. But Brooklyn Nets has seen James Harden on the court. And him and KD, man, that chemistry is top notch. And they went over their Orlando Magic, obviously only by 6 points, but both these guys showed out. 33-point triple-double for James Harden. I mean, the first 30-point triple-double in an NBA kind of new team debut, which is absolutely crazy. And Kevin Durant helped out there with 42 points of his own. And in terms of just sharing the ball, obviously we haven't seen Kyrie yet. They are facing the Milwaukee Bucks tonight, in which Kyrie is hopefully going to play. I mean, he was this close to playing on Saturday, but he had to still do, I think, an extra test. But I believe we're going to see all of them 3 on the court against the Bucks today, and that's going to be so fun. That's going to be a hell of a fun game to watch. But, you still haven't had Kyrie there, but Harden and KD just look great. They just look great together. Obviously, you're going to want other players on that team to show up. I mean, Joe Harris had 17 points that game as well, so that was good for them. But at the same time, these guys they've played together. They've played together. Everyone wants to say that. But that was a long time ago. That was when James Harden was a 6-man. It was a whole different scenario. But the fact these guys still have that type of connection to at this current moment, when they're both top 8 players in the league, is scary. And obviously they have their issues. Obviously, they traded a lot of their depth. I mean, they were playing guys on Saturday that I had no idea was even on their roster. And their defense is going to be a problem. Like I said earlier, DeAndre Jordan has not had that great of a year. He started for the Brooklyn Nets at the start of the year and quickly was yanked for Jared Allen. And before Jared Allen was traded, he was getting DNP coaches' decisions. So you could just see like DeAndre Jordan just wasn't fully in it, and like he just hasn't been playing well. But now he is asked to do a whole lot for the team because he is their defensive anchor. He is probably their best defensive player. Actually, probably not. And I can argue that Bruce Brown or Kevin Durant is better. But that's beside the fact. He is just so important in terms of anchoring that defense and just grabbing rebounds, which he hasn't done a great job this year at. But he's going to have to because they don't have much to offer in terms of that big man position. Like I said, they still have 5 roster spots, so we're going to have to see what they do here. But from what we've seen so far, this team could be dangerous. I don't care what you say. When you have 3 guys who are arguably top 13 players in the league right now, this could possibly be the best big 3 of all time, honestly. You have 2 perennial MVP candidates and a guy who, at his best, although it's a bit iffy at times, is a top 3, top 2 point guard in the league when he plays at his highest level. They are a dangerous team, but this is their first season. You also have to take into account. And sometimes these super teams in their first year just don't work out. Just ask the Miami Heat back in 2011 when they lost to the Dallas Mavericks. Just ask the Clippers last year where they made these major moves and they couldn't get out the second round. It happens. So if they underachieve this year, I'm not going to say you got to expect it, but you shouldn't be surprised. You shouldn't. And like I said, there's just so many other issues with that team. Obviously, this team can score, 140 points a game just because of their 3 stars alone. But it's more to that. It's more to the game of basketball. And although they are near top NBA Finals candidates, a lot could go wrong, especially with those 3 egos. I think this is probably, a 2-3 year experiment. Brooklyn Nets traded their whole future for this sort of experiment. And if they don't win a championship here, I can confidently say it's a failure. It really is. You have 3 superstar players in their prime, and you just got to take advantage of it. You can't let this opportunity go to waste. And I just honestly just can't wait to see all 3 of them on the court. I think this is going to be an absolute just fun team to watch. And if they can find a way to use Harden off ball, use Kyrie off ball, and just let them just create for each other, I think this could be a really, really good team. And like I said, tonight, I'm going to talk about it later in the game of the week, but oh man, this game is going to be a whole lot of fun, especially if we could see all 3 of those guys on the court at the same time. But yeah, the Brooklyn Nets, just to encompass all of this, they got their guy in the trade. Obviously, they gave up a lot, but they still won. And that's what I like about this trade. Every team here has won in their own way. And I can't really say that there's a loser to here. And that's what I'm going to say about the next team here. And we're going to be talking about the Houston Rockets. They got Brooklyn's future of getting, 7 years worth of picks. They got, 4 pick swaps, 3 first-round picks, obviously one of them coming from Cleveland. And along with that, which was probably the shock of this trade, was that they ended up getting Victor Oladipo. Now, obviously, Victor Oladipo has had his issues with Indiana. He denies the fact, but there were reports over the offseason, the very short offseason we had, that he doesn't want to be there. And he's on an expiring contract. And the Rockets, along with getting those, massive haul with the picks, they ended up getting a star player in Victor Oladipo, former All-NBA player. And I think this is a calculated risk because they also have John Wall on that team. They have DeMarcus Cousins and Victor Oladipo now, fitting in with Christian Wood, who has been absolutely phenomenal this year. But if those guys are all healthy, if they're playing to a high level, this could be a competitive team. I'm not saying they're a championship team, but they'll be competitive. I mean, Oladipo has obviously been in and out of the lineup because of his injury that he sustained, I believe it was 2 seasons ago. I remember that game because it was against Toronto, but he hasn't looked like himself. And that's why Indiana was willing to trade him, because they didn't want to be the team to give Victor Oladipo that money. But the Rockets, getting a player who has a pretty big contract right now, $22 million. But they get to see what he could do if he plays at a high level, along with John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, Christian Wood. They might be tempted to bring him back, and it's good to have that type of option. And what I like about this risk is that, look, it may not work out. You have 3 guys who have been injury riddled these last few years, who are all former All NBA, All Star type players. What if it doesn't work? They have the fallback option, the future picks from Brooklyn. And for a team that has given up all his assets during the Daryl Morey era, just trying to get those pieces around James Harden, they recovered well. They recovered very well, and now they have, a future to look at. Steven Silas their new head coach had to deal with so much in that James Harden trade, and honestly, that just trading him away was just a what's it called? Like a weight lift off their shoulders. That's what it was. I mean, after the James Harden press conference, all of his teammates had to answer for him, and they talked about how he was being disrespectful in practice and games and yada yada yada. It was just not a good environment. It just wasn't. So just trading away James Harden just lifted that weight off their shoulders. That did a lot for Steven Silas, who, to remind you, he's in his first year as a head coach. And even their first year GM, Raphael Stone, had to just deal with this James Harden thing. And I think he got a nice haul. Obviously, Philly had their offer, and I'm going to get into Philly later, but they decided to go with this, I believe, the safer, get more assets type of option. And I think that's not a bad idea. And what I like about this team, and like I said, they have you're taking a chance on these players, but if it doesn't work out, they have the draft picks. Because really the only player I could see them keeping long term is Christian Wood, because he has been absolutely phenomenal. But if Oladipo can step up, give them that 20-point production that he was giving in Indiana 2 years ago. Same thing with John Wall. If he can somehow bounce back from his knee issues, which are starting to creep up again. I mean, he's been having knee soreness, knee issues, and he hasn't really played these last few games. And if DeMarcus Cousins can play at a higher level, this team is a playoff team. They really are. But that's the biggest question, because right now Christian Wood has been their most consistent player, probably their best player. But it's all up to them, with the rest of his team just getting healthy to see if things will get better. But yeah, the Rockets win here. The Rockets are a winner here just because they recouped their future. They got a pretty decent player in return in Victor Oladipo, and just like other, young pieces. I believe Don Maker's on that team now, Dante Exum. But I think that the Rockets got what they wanted. Obviously, it's not like a young star, but they got the haul in terms of the draft picks. Let's talk about the Pacers now, because they actually did really good here. Obviously, they got out of the Victor Oladipo situation, and I think they did really good here. They got Karis LeVert in the trade, which I wasn't expecting him to be anywhere but the Rockets, and a second-round pick for a disgruntled star, which honestly is a really good deal for them. They have LeVert locked up for the next 2 years after this year, and mixing with that young team, and he's on a pretty good contract. It was just a perfect scenario for them. The problem is, when he was doing his medical with the Pacers over the weekend, they found a small mass in his kidney. They're going to have to do further testing on it. Obviously, when someone thinks of something like that, they automatically think cancer. Obviously, you don't want to expect the worst, knock on wood. But that's what I thought. That's what a lot of people thought. And we're just hoping it's not serious, because Karis LeVert is a very good young player. This guy was balling out for the Brooklyn Nets. And I think he's just the type of player that would just fit right into Indiana's system perfectly. Doesn't need the ball in his hands the whole time. He's a good slasher, good off-the-ball player. And he could play hard in the defensive end. And he just joins a team where a lot of people have been sleeping on him the last few years. He joins a team where their entire team is slept on. Put him beside Malcolm Brogdon, who is a consistently good player who could be making his first All-Star appearance this year. Sabonis, obviously. Miles Turner has looked absolutely phenomenal this year. I think that team with Karis LeVert would be great. Would be absolutely fantastic. But what really matters now is we just get him healthy. I want to just get Karis LeVert healthy and hopefully just back out on the floor, because obviously we don't want to hope. We don't want to wish. We just want to hope for the best for him. We really do. And obviously, I think with the scenario up in the air right now, I believe the Brooklyn Nets also sent over $2.5 million to help compensate for that. But you know, knock on wood, just praying for him. Hopefully he does well, and we get to see him out on the court soon. He's out indefinitely, and yeah, honestly, I mean, a lot of people have been pointing this on Twitter. Maybe this trade saved him, because if this trade didn't happen, he wouldn't have got that medical, and they wouldn't have found that small mass in his kidney. Like, just imagine, he probably played through it. I mean, like I said, I mean, there's a lot of worse things that could happen. So, who knows? Maybe this could have saved his life. This could have. And I'm just glad that, they're taking the right precautions. Obviously, they just, more than just him being able to be on the basketball court, they just want to make sure his health is okay. And all NBA fans are behind him. Let's hope that he's good, and let's hope that we can see him back on the basketball court soon, because he is a joy of a player to watch. Like I said, the Pacers are definitely like a winner in their own right, getting rid of a disgruntled star and just getting a future star in the process. They did really well there, and hopefully we get to see how he is on the court for them. Now let's go into the final team who is a part of this trade, and that is the Cleveland Cavaliers. And obviously they're going to be the least talked about team in this trade, but they got their future center. They did. They didn't have to give up much. I mean, they gave up, a first-round pick for Milwaukee next year, which is probably going to be, high 20s, maybe even the 30th pick, because the Milwaukee Bucks are just going to be a damn good team. And they bring in Jared Allen, who is probably going to be better than whatever you pick there. And with him being a 24-year-old player, he just fits in with the timeline of this team. With the Sexland backcourt, Porter Jr., Kevin Porter. If you guys got confused with the Michael Porter thing, but they also have Isaac Okoro as well. He just fits in, and obviously there's just a glut of just big men there in Cleveland. But Jared Allen is definitely the long-term option for them, which is absolutely great. But what does this mean for Andre Drummond? And look, they win. The Cavs are a winner here as well, just because they got Jared Allen. But what's going to happen to Drummond? He has been absolutely balling out this year. He has been absolutely fantastic. He has played at such a high level. I mean, this guy was, got a 30-20 game against the New York Knicks just a few days ago. I believe it was Friday. And on the season, this guy's averaging 19, 16, 47% from the field, 1.6 blocks, 1.7 steals. He's been playing great, and I think he's changing the narrative about him, because he's actually helping the Cleveland Cavaliers to some wins, especially because this excellent backcourt has been in and out the lineup because of injury. But he was never the long-term solution. They traded absolutely nothing to get him, a protected second-round pick, John Henson, and Brandon Knight, who I think are out of the league at this point. So they gave up nothing to get him, and I think with the way he's playing, he's just upping his trade value. And a lot of teams need centers. The Toronto Raptors, as much as I may not want to trade for him, I think he would be a good option to just help fill that center position. The Boston Celtics, the Golden State Warriors, there are teams that need a Andre Drummond. And on a one-year deal, I don't think I think teams will just take a chance on him, really. And I think the Cavs could get maybe 1, 2 first-round picks, maybe a couple seconds. I don't know, but they can get something out of Andre Drummond and just already transition Jared Allen into that starting role. But yeah, I mean, Drummond was not staying past the season, and with the way he's playing, they could definitely get something out of him. So expect Drummond to be traded pretty soon, and the Cavs have a really good option at that center position, especially fitting with their young core. And I'm starting to like where they're going with this. I really am, and I think the Cavs are just going in the right direction, making really good trades and, setting themselves up for the future. Obviously, they have to get some of their older guys out of there, like Kevin Love, like Andre Drummond. But they're set up pretty good for the future, so they are a winner in their own right. But yeah, those are the 4 teams. Let me know if you agree and disagree. I really don't see a loser here, but if you think there's a loser, just leave it down in the comment section. I mean, I think the biggest loser of this trade is someone who wasn't even involved in the trade. And that's a problem. And there's my next topic. I'm going to be talking about the Philadelphia 76ers and just what's next for them. They were inches away from pulling the trigger on this trade. They had Ben Simmons on the table. They probably had, Matisse Thybulle. But they just couldn't get the job done. And what was funny after the trade was that, like, I was expecting for it to be kind of awkward in the locker room or something like that. It felt like, according to all reports, it was more relief than anything. And Ben Simmons was just glad that he wasn't traded. So, he's playing, okay. He's playing okay this season. I mean, it's probably been the worst season of his career, Ben Simmons. But I think a lot of that had to do with his kind of just sulking because he thought he was going to be part of a trade. But with that being said, he's not going to get traded, so they could just move forward. And Philly have had a good start to the season, obviously. The last week or so has been kind of rough because of the COVID situation. They had, 6-7 guys basically just isolating because of health and safety protocols. So they've kind of dropped a bit from their number one spot in the East. But they've just been playing well this season. And I think if all things go well, they could still be a top team in this league. But the problem is, are they on the level of the Milwaukee Bucks, the Brooklyn Nets? I don't think so, and I think that this is why they're still going to be on the trade market. They just need to shake up this team. And my idea for them is keeping Embiid and Simmons, keeping them at bay, and trying to get after Bradley Beal. Really try going after Bradley Beal. I think he would be the perfect third star to fit with a Ben Simmons Embiid team. Ben Simmons just loves to dish the ball out and play the point guard role, so having Bradley Beal by his side as an option would just be fantastic. And I just think that they need to shake things up because from the looks of things, I mean, they just don't look like, part of that upper echelon of the Eastern Conference. I would still have the Bucks and the Brooklyn Nets at the moment over them. And I think Beal would kind of rocket them to that point. The only question is Washington going to accept it? Because, like I said, he is perfect beside Simmons and Embiid. But what are the 76ers going to offer? Apparently, the guy that has been playing really well over these last week or so, Tyrese Maxey, was one of the deciding factors as to why Philadelphia didn't pull off the trade. Also, they have Tobias Harris on the contract, so in terms of contracts, that's not going to be an issue. But will the Wizards accept it? I don't know. But at this moment, the Wizards are struggling heavily, and they just need to find a trade partner. It might get to a point where they need to get a trade partner for Bradley Beal. And I think the 76ers are going to have some competition, of course. Denver Nuggets come to mind. They have been kind of in the middle ground right now. Maybe they just need someone to help them out there. And Miami, same thing as Denver. They're in the middle ground. Maybe they just want that other star to help give their team a boost. Well, with Philly here, I don't think they're done. They have been extremely active on the trade market so far, like just being a part of all these rumors. And Daryl Morey is not going to go a season without making a trade. That would just be a fool of you to think that. So, yeah, I think that there's still something that can be done there in Philly. And I think just to help take him to the next level because what hurts about this trade is that not only did you miss out on James Harden, he's going to a direct rival in the Brooklyn Nets here. And I think that's what they kind of just have to kind of compete with. They brought in Daryl Morey for a reason. They brought in Doc for a reason. They're trying to win now. They're just trying to win now, and I think going for a trade, I mean, obviously it's worked out so far this season, but they just haven't been at their very best. And I think that this could just take them over the top. And that East could be deadly crazy if that trade could be pulled off. So, yeah, I don't think Philly's done. Watch out. Even if it's not a Bradley Beal trade, I could imagine them maneuvering some pieces to try and get another, shooting option for their team. But right this moment, is Simmons off the trade block? I don't think so. I think there's still a possibility for that, but Philly's going to make a trade. I could almost guarantee that. They're just not going to go and let Brooklyn, just take over the reins there. I think they're going to try and do something to counter that for sure. Let's move on to this. I talked a lot about teams, but there's a player I just wanted to talk about. And this player has really helped a struggling team. He has really helped, and he is one of just the bright spots on what could be said as a pretty disappointing season. And I want to talk about Chris Boucher here, because the Raptors, as you guys know, Toronto Raptor fan right here. Been a fan since I was a little kid. Obviously was at their championship parade the last few years. And it's been a while since we've had like any sort of just like a time for struggle. And as Raptor fans who have been what perennial playoff have been a perennial playoff team over the last 7-8 years. Seeing a team like our team struggle like this is kind of new territory, at least for the newer Raptor fans. I mean, I remember the days where the Raptors were like winning 16 games. I remember those days, but out of a season so far where things have struggled, obviously, with the center position, Siakam has kind of been up and down this season. The bench hasn't performed the way we want to. But the one really bright spot, besides Lowry and Van Vliet playing at a high level, is Chris Boucher. And he's been absolutely phenomenal this year. 7 20-point games this year. He is averaging 16 points a game, 7 rebounds, 2.5 blocks on 60% from the field. What I like about him, and what I've liked about him ever since he came to Toronto, is that he always has that confidence in him. He'll always play hard, but he just didn't have the skill set to kind of match that. Like, he was still a very much developing player. He was kind of a late bloomer. I believe came into the NBA at 25, 26 when he joined the Golden State Warriors, and then ended up back in his home country of Canada, and is playing really well. And what I like about this is that the Raptors have had this kind of carousel at center at the moment. I mean, some days Nick Nurse wants to try out Alex Len, sometimes he wants to try out Aaron Baines, but they've been horrible. Nothing short of horrible this season, and he has been kind of the biggest bright spot here. And that's just kind of the Raptors system. I mean, how many times have the Raptors got someone off the street, out of the G League, and just developed him to be a very good NBA player? Pascal Siakam, 27th pick in the first round, played in the G League for the majority of his first year. Now it's an all-star. Fred VanVleet, undrafted, in the G League for a bit. Now is got the bag and is a very, very good starter at the point guard position. And they're doing the same here at Chris Boucher. Like, at this point, we just can't be surprised with the Raptors at that point. They just know how to just get talent. They just know how to develop talent. And more than anything, they just are good at just getting players that just help fit their style. And Boucher is doing that. I mean, this guy's hitting threes left, right, and center. You see him take threes off the dribble. He's just playing absolutely fantastic. And whether Nick Nurse wants to do this pseudo starting center thing where he basically plays over 30 minutes a game, but he's coming off the bench, or he starts, I think he's just going to play extremely well. And I'm just hoping that he just gets more time with the Raptors. A lot of fans are like, oh, he should be starting. I don't know why Nick Nurse just keeps putting on the bench. Look, he's playing starting minutes. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. As long as he's playing starting minutes, I'm happy. So whether he wants to start like Baines and play him 5 minutes a game and then go to Boucher, whatever he wants. I just need Boucher to just have consistently over 30 minutes a game because this center position has been tough for the Raptors, and we just need someone. We just need to get someone with energy and that fight. And Boucher has been one of those guys so far, and he's been absolutely fantastic. So hopefully he plays well. He's probably up there with Christian Wood right now as the leading candidates for most improved players. So hopefully he can keep this up. And in the game against Dallas tonight on Martin Luther King Day, I think he can definitely show out. So hopefully we get to see more Chris Boucher. We are moving into the end stretch of today's episode. Before we get into the power rankings, I do have some COVID updates from the NBA. Throughout this week, many games have been postponed as well, and it's brought the total up for the NBA to 14 games have been postponed this year so far. And the biggest news coming out of the COVID, in terms of COVID in the NBA, is that the Washington Wizards have 6 players tested positive with COVID, and at the moment they just don't have enough guys to put out on the court. They just don't, and obviously with contract tracing enough of that and stuff like that, it may be a while until we see the Washington Wizards back on court, but hopefully those guys are okay, and hopefully we can see them back on the court. And the biggest story here is that Karl Anthony Towns of the Minnesota Timberwolves has contracted the virus. If you guys don't know, Cat has had a rough year. He had a rough 2020. He lost 7 family members last year due to COVID complications. And now he's contracted the virus. And obviously, with his family history and stuff, people started to get worried. I'm not too worried. I think apparently he's asymptomatic as well, so hopefully things go well for Cat. But yeah, this just shows this thing is very real, um, and literally anyone can get it. I mean, the NBA is still trying to power through, but I'm wondering if there's just this breaking point where it's like, okay, now it's time to postpone the season for the time being. But at the same time, all of these leagues had to go through it. The MLB, the NFL, they all had to go through this kind of rough patch, like mid-season or near the beginning of the season. But they had to power through it, and they were able to finish out their seasons. I could see the NBA doing the same thing here, just kind of just powering through and just trying to get it done. And obviously, it sucks that these guys had COVID, but hopefully, at some point in the season where it just starts to die down a bit. It just starts to die down, and we could just continue on with this NBA season. Obviously, players up to Cat. Hopefully, he's okay. Same thing to those Wizards players. But, the NBA has like these stricter policies now that are going on. It's a lot. It's a lot of changing they did with the policies. I don't even remember them all, to be completely honest. But yeah, I mean, people are waiting to see if this season's gonna be postponed. I don't think they're gonna do it, just because they just want to power through it. They don't want to like go off schedule, and I just hope that the NBA just kind of knows what they're doing and they're looking out for the safety of their players. So yeah, so far, I mean, they're still able to play some games, but hopefully it does get better. Now let's move on to our weekly, segments. We have the power rankings. We have the game of the week. Obviously, on a Monday, it's a new week, so we just gotta look at these and see who I think is gonna are kind of the top teams in the NBA at the moment. I'm gonna go down from 10 to 1. 2 new teams in, 2 teams out. I can say confidently that the 2 teams that got out were the Golden State Warriors and the Denver Nuggets. So you have 2 new teams in the mix and a lot of changes just up and down this list. So I'm excited to talk about this. So let's get into it. I'm also going to be trying to be quick with this too, because I've been kind of long on these power rankings for a bit. So yeah, let's get into this. Starting off at number 10, we have a new team in the mix. We have the Portland Trailblazers. They've had a really good week, and just quietly, they have gone up to like number 6 in the West after having kind of an up and down start to the year, and they're starting to figure things out. What has sucked this week for the Portland Trailblazers is that Yusuf Nurkic broke his wrist, so he's going to be out for at least 8 weeks. And CJ McCollum had a minor injury on Saturday, but it seems to be minor, so he should be back pretty soon. But they're slowly just creeping up the standings. They're playing very well. Damian Lillard is, and I think they're just going to continue this momentum. They have outclassed the Warriors and the Denver Nuggets this week, so that's why I have them at number 10. At number 9, I have a team that has dropped a few spots, and they had a pretty bad loss to the Clippers yesterday, and that is the Indiana Pacers. Look, they had some good wins over the Trailblazers and the Suns, but that loss to the Clippers yesterday and the LeVert injury definitely does hurt them. Like I said, prayers up to LeVert. Hopefully we get to see him on the court soon. But the Pacers have kind of dropped a bit in the East standings. Not by too much, but at the same time, they had to drop a few spots on my list. So at number 9, we have the Indiana Pacers. Another team that has dropped 2 spots in this week's power rankings and coming in at number 8 is the Phoenix Suns. They haven't played much this week due to COVID. I mean, they had 3 games that were postponed this week. But one of the 2 games that they just, I believe they played 1 or 2 games this week. One of the games, they just got absolutely trashed by the Washington Wizards, which is bad for a team like Phoenix because the Wizards are a struggling team. And the fact that you just got, smacked by them that easily is not a good sign. But because of the postponed games, some teams are kind of overtaking them in the standings, but I can't take too much into it. But the only reason they dropped 2 spots is because I think their teams are kind of like creeping up ahead of them at this point. So at number 8, we have the Phoenix Suns. Coming in at number 7 is a new addition to this list and a first time, and they've been here for the first time this year, and that is the Utah Jazz. I think kind of like the Pacers in the East, this team has been very, very underrated. Right now, they are number 3 in the West. Donovan Mitchell playing very good. Mike Conley going back to his, Mike Conley self from Memphis. Rudy Gobert obviously being the defensive anchor, and Jordan Clarkson off the bench, scoring almost 18 points a game this year. I mean, they've been looking really good, and now they're number 3 in the West. So, because of their good run of form, I have the Utah Jazz at number 7. Speaking of a good run of form, the Brooklyn Nets are taking the 6th place in my power rankings this week. They're on a 3-game winning streak. KD has looked phenomenal over this past week, and you could just tell on Saturday that chemistry with James Harden is just awesome. And I think they're just going to continue to just climb this list and probably get back in the top 3 like they were in the beginning of the season. But right now, they have at number 6. Hopefully we get to see Kyrie out there soon. But yeah, they have climbed, 3 spaces since last week. So yeah, good job for the Brooklyn Nets. They are number 6 on my list. Coming at number 5, a team that has dropped, I believe, 2 or 3 spaces, but they still have looked pretty good this year, and that is the Philadelphia 76ers. Obviously, they had COVID problems last week, and they finally got most of their guys back. I believe it was either Thursday or Friday. But they had some rough losses. I mean, that loss to the Grizzlies a couple of days ago was pretty rough, especially because the 76ers had most of their guys back. And they got smacked by the Hawks, who have been absolutely struggling these past 2 weeks. So, yeah, 2 pretty bad losses there. Obviously, it's not fully on them just because they are missing a bunch of guys. But still, on a week-to-week basis, this has been a pretty bad week for the 76ers. And that's why they dropped to number 5. Coming in at number 4, we have the Boston Celtics, who I believe dropped 1 spot as well this week. Same thing with some of these teams on this list. Didn't get to play much due to postponed games. But that loss to New York yesterday, oh my gosh, 105-75. That was a rough game for the Boston Celtics. And, just on that alone, I mean, they didn't get to play much this week anyway. They had to drop a spot or 2. And, I mean, they're still a good team. They're still, top 2 or 3 in the East. But it's just been that was a rough game for the Celtics, especially yesterday. That was tough. Coming in at number 3, we have a team, I believe, I'm not sure if they stayed put or if they just, I think, moved up 1 or 2 spots. But it's the LA Clippers. They've looked really good, and, their 2 stars are just clicking right now with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Before last night's game against the Indiana Pacers, I was very concerned with, the rest of their guys that are not named Paul George and Kawhi Leonard helping on the offensive end. But as I was planning to say that on today's show, Marcus Morris led the team in scoring yesterday's. Or I think it was I think he was either first or second on the team in scoring yesterday. So if they can get just more production out of him, more production out of the other guys, I think they'll be fine. I mean, they're probably the best competition for the Lakers out west. And I just wanted to see them, stay competitive and, stay up there. Because I don't want to the Lakers, we'll just get into them later. But the Clippers have looked really good, and that's why they're number 3. Coming in at number 2 is a team that has been rolling this past week, and that is the Milwaukee Bucks. They are 9-4 in the season, number 1 in the East. And I think they're doing it pretty quietly. Obviously, we talked a lot about them over the past few years because Giannis has been winning MVP and stuff like that. But they've been kind of under the radar this year just because of the whole Brooklyn Nets stuff that's been going on. But they sit number 1 in the East like they have been over the past few years. And they're just playing very good basketball. Giannis has missed, I think, 1 or 2 games last week. And the team just stepped up in his absence. So I think this is going to be a trend that's going to continue to go into the Bucks' favor. And I think they're just going to continue to play at a high level. So coming at number 2, we have the Milwaukee Bucks. And you guys know the drill. Number 1 in this week is a team that has been number 1 for the entire season. And that is the Los Angeles Lakers. Best record in the league. They're still on that winning streak. LeBron isn't even really trying. They're just the best team in the league. And it doesn't really look pretty close. And that's all I'm going to say about it because they're just that good of a team. And they're just going to continue to go. And unless, they have a reason to get me concerned, I'm not going to be concerned. The Lakers are beasts. They stay number 1 on this week's power rankings. So yeah, that is my top 10 for this week. Leave your thoughts below with whether you agree or disagree. And also comment on the post I did on Instagram this morning because I also, posted just the list in general there. So just go check it out, leave your thoughts, all that good stuff. But to end off today's show, we obviously have to do the game of the week. And today on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, obviously, before I get into the game, Martin Luther King did so much for civil rights movements and all that. And it's just good that the NBA just has a day dedicated to them, to him, and just all he has done for obviously the black community and just, all the work he did, in the 50s and 60s and stuff like that. He is definitely one of the biggest voices of recent memory, and it's good that his message still lives on to today. People are still fighting the battles that he fought back in the 60s, and hopefully we have a better world in the future because of it. But yeah, another good thing about Martin Luther King Day in terms of the NBA is that there's a bunch of games on the dock, and we have some good ones today. I was thinking of doing the Toronto Raptors Dallas Mavericks game, but I gotta do the battle of the two best teams in the East. We have the Brooklyn Nets, who have not confirmed if Kyrie's not playing yet, but they're facing the Milwaukee Bucks today at a 7:30 Eastern tip-off. That's gonna be such a fun game to watch. And right now they're giving the Milwaukee Bucks 2 points. They are -2 favorites in this game against the Brooklyn Nets. Obviously, like I said, Kyrie is not confirmed to be playing yet, but the Bucks have been rolling. They're on that 4-game winning streak. Who do I go with here? I'm going to go with the Milwaukee Bucks. I think that the depth and the way that the Brooklyn Nets has just not addressed really the rest of their roster yet, it's going to be a problem, and I think the Bucks just are going to win these games in the trenches. Obviously, having Giannis down low, having Brook Lopez, and just good slashers around their team, I think that's going to prove to be a problem for the Brooklyn Nets. And although I think it's going to be a competitive game, probably maybe a 4 or 5 point deficit, either way, I think the Milwaukee Bucks will come out with the win. It's basically a 50-50, but I'm going to go with the Milwaukee Bucks here, -2 favorites. So, yeah. Right now I sit 3-3. On Friday, my game was the Sacramento Kings and LA Clippers, where the Clippers, I think, had a -8 or something like that favorite. And I decided to go with them just because they were rolling and the Kings were struggling. And they ended up winning by 38. So, good for me, good for them. Let's see if I'm going to be able to be over 500 for the first time this season. But yeah, I think this is where we're going to end today's episode. Thank you guys for watching. Remember to show love on all the podcast channels. Like, share, and subscribe if you're on YouTube. And remember to follow @TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for just some great content. I've been putting a lot of great stuff up there. And also check out my TikTok because I've been doing daily recaps there. So if you want to see my reaction to just games kind of the day after, you should go check me out there. All my links should be found in my link tree or the description of this video. I may have a guest on this Friday, so please look out for that. I'm very excited for the talk I'm going to have with these guys. So, yeah, look out for that. If not, it's just going to be another solo podcast. And I'm going to be back again Wednesday. You're going to see me with another YouTube exclusive video, so watch out for that. And yeah, I'm just excited for just NBA today, NBA for the rest of the season. And fingers crossed we can still continue on without any, COVID problems. But yeah, I think this is where we're going to end today's episode. Thank you guys for all the support. Over 2,100 downloads on the podcast. Thank you guys so much for all that. And yeah, just hope you guys just enjoy this basketball day as well. And yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna end up here, but this is gonna be the end of today's episode. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you all have a fantastic day. TV signing out. Take it easy, guys.